So this is about creating the web applications. Right now you will see there are different modules for creating the applications. The first and foremost is the Flask, which is most common. Then followed by these days there is another common thing called as Django. Which two are like very famous. So the next one these days is like Fast API. With these three modules, instead of calling it as a module, we should call it as a framework. What is the difference between a module and a framework means? Module will be do a independent small work or like what it is designed for. Whereas a framework means it's a combination of multiple modules for one particular purpose specific. See, the Django, Flask, Fast API, all these three we can use for both creating web apps and also REST API. What do you mean by a web app and what is a REST API? So REST API means it is mainly for the backend. We don't have a front end and everything we do is in the back. So similarly here, how things works. A web application means like you should have something is in input in the backend and something it should take in the front end. So there are like multiple ways. The most common is using Flask. So using Flask. Using Flask, let's say a small hello world application. Underscore hello world. So I created a folder, a small application. Say like this time I'm writing file also as hello world, just for me to understand. Typically one Python script I created. In this, we need to work on whatever we want. So at the very first thing, as it's a simple app, it doesn't mean that I should write a hello world only. I can write like a underscore simple app. Means name doesn't matter. We can write the name to be anywhere. But we should follow all the rules of a typical Python program. Then first we need to install this module. So pip install Flask. Now we are installing modules, but for the first time you're creating an application. When you're creating an application, it's better you create a virtual environment. So what is this concept of virtual environment? The first time you're doing. As we are working on projects, we are starting with it. Virtual environment, you can think like a container. So it's not literally like a Docker container or something. So way before like all these things came, virtual environment came. The point is very simple. If you are working on a project, right, say one application, I want to work with this Flask. Say version 1.0, I want to work. In another application, I want to work with the same Flask, which is 1.2 issue. I'm just telling. Or in another project, I want to use the Flask as same, but there is some X dependency which should be used a different version. Or in my same system, I want one project in Python 2 and another project in Python 3. So how we can manage in a system only once we can install, right? So to manage all these things, we have this concept of virtual environment. There are different ways of creating a virtual environment. The first is using the VENV. So next there is something called as PENV, then like poetry. These are like virtual environment managers. Now, how do you understand what is the virtual environment? How things will be different? If let's say I am going for this project now, CLS, and say like I am in this directory creating web apps. Under that ASO and so. Sure. If I say list of files, only my folder is there. So maybe like I want to go within this folder. I can say my only file a underscore simple app.py. Now I want to create a virtual environment. First of all, I will say Python ---- version. You understood what is a Python version. So by default, you have one version installed. In this, you want to create a virtual environment. For that, Python-m means, hey, using Python, there is a module called as env. Using that, create a virtual environment with the format .env. So anything that you don't want to be part of the code, you start with a dot, such that it will be like a hidden file. It won't come along with your git commits and others. Of course. So that also we need to write. There is something called as git ignore. I will tell you shortly. So I typically wrote this .env, second .env is like your own name. Instead, I can say like a dot my environment or something I can write. Once you create it, it will create a virtual environment. What do you mean by this virtual environment, sir? And see here, there is a new folder which was created, which is also having the libs, scripts, and all these things. Same like your installation of Python built in, like that it is creating one more environment. Then what is the difference, sir? I will tell you now. As you are working on these projects, you need it. It will take a moment to do it. It will like in due course, we can start writing the code. So after creating the environment, we need to do the installation of this Flask and we can work. Such that in other things, if you want to work with a different version also, it can work. So, okay, it is taking a moment. In due course, let me explain. So there is from Flask import Flask. So this is a Flask application. Within that, we need to create an app. Flask is generally created for creating applications. Within that, I need to create the app. I create Flask of say underscore underscore name underscore underscore. Means like, hey, for this application, whatever is the name, you do it. That's what I'm trying to say. And after that, I created a small app like this. You see now. So hello world is a function I wrote. For that, I wrote a return. And on top, I'm writing app.router slash. It's very interesting. You will understand shortly. What is this application doing? How we can understand. See, if I see here, okay, in due course, this virtual environment was created. You can see that it was done, right? Installation was done. Now, how do I know that how to use it? Virtual environment. After creating Python, say I created Python. And if I say import sys, if you remember, I told sys.executable. If I ask sys.executable, it is pointing to the main directory. Means it didn't activate the virtual environment. So this is how you create a virtual environment. Creating virtual environment. Then how do you activate it? Activating means there are two ways. So you should come out of this environment just to show you understand. Now in the current directory, I have the this thing. If I just do ls, I won't get because it's a hidden file. If I say -a, I will get it. In Windows, anyhow, you don't have the difference between hidden files. You will just see the .env. Now in this .env file, there will be different things. There is something called as scripts. So if I say scripts and then like activate. If it is Linux, vanv slash instead of scripts, it will be bin. This second line will be different. Second folder will be different. That's it. If I do activate, that's it. I need not do anything else. Did you see a one hyphen came, right? So this is how you activate it actually. So activating means like this. If it is Linux, the same thing. So instead of this, it will be a bin. So this first one is like for Windows. So like this. And similarly, for POSIX, we generally call it as POSIX. Means like Linux, Mac, so and so. Linux, Mac, etc. So it would be like this. That's the only step you do. After activating, now again if I say I type Python. So if I say import sys.executable, did you understand where it is pointing to? Earlier where it is in the main directory, right? Now it is saying that, hey, you are pointing to a virtual environment which is in this directory. Means, so in your main system you can have multiple things, and this environment is very different. So we can start anything here. Now I will come to this particular page where I want to work. Say I have like in the current directory one app. If I say Python space a so and so, it is throwing an error that there is no module. Now if I say pip install Flask, so hope you know this option, right? Hyphen capital U. And one thing you need to aware, till now we are doing hyphen user, you remember? Now as we are within the virtual environment, we have the full control. We need not give this hyphen user anymore. So this hyphen user is not needed when you are in a virtual environment outside based upon the permissions. Now if I do directly, it will install. You see, it is installing without any permission issues, nothing. Then apart from that, it is also giving a warning that, hey, the pip version was updated. Means the moment virtual environment is created, it is having a older pip version. Means this pip is different from the main system pip, right? Because for installations only both are used. Okay, we can have this. So what is saying, hey, if you do this statement also, it would be helpful. Okay, if you want to update it, so it will update. So this pip which is updating is belonging to this virtual environment. So whatever actions for dependency management you do here, it's all related to this. So now you created a virtual environment. Everything is good. And so here the best practice is whenever you're creating any project, so after this was done, we need to create a executable. Of course, this is not your virtual environment. So this is your virtual environment. It's not your main code. So never touch anything there. You write your code differently outside. Okay. And after that, you need to create one new file called as requirements.txt. So requirements.txt, this is most important because see, so you created an application, you created a virtual environment and you worked on it, everything is good. But tomorrow, if the same application need to go to production, so we should know what all modules are used and exact versions. Because if you do the same thing there with a different version, some things may not work. So requirements.txt is used for managing the requirements. So for that, we need to go here. If I clear the screen, so there is something called as list. It is a module which has all these options. If I do pip list, it will list all the modules which are installed. So by default, only few are coming because it is a virtual environment. The moment it is created, what all things will be there? As I installed Flask, along with Flask, few others came. These pip setup tools, these two will come by default. But others just now installed. You just installed one module, say a framework. I told framework, right? Because when a module is there, along with that, it will have some other modules. All of them came to you. Now, there is one more thing called as pip freeze. If I do pip list means it is just showing, right? So package name and version. Similarly, pip freeze means it is showing the same things like is equal to like that. Now this pip freeze, I want to push to requirements.txt. This is the most common thing everyone does. So you don't create a file, this will automatically create this file and place it. So tomorrow when this code is getting pushed to production, so they can just do, instead of going and installing every program individually, they can say like, hey, pip install -r requirements txt. Of course, in this case, everything was already installed. That's why you can see everything already satisfied like this. So 2 steps you need to remember. So this is for this one. So pip install for requirements. Subsequently, if you want to do it, and in the same fashion, pip freeze for getting the requirements. So for creating, you need to manage it. Till now, I showed you how do you create a real-time project and how do you do the things. Now we created a small project called as a hello world. Now let's see how these things need to be worked. So if I say ls again, I have my file. So now Python space simple. Python space. If I execute, it is executing. What it is saying? Hey, serving Flask application a underscore so and so. This is a production server. Do not use it in the production system. Something means by default I am creating you an application right now. If you want to expose it for production, don't use directly the same. Means in real time what happens? So it's a very simple thing. So when a end user is there, end user, like say some user is there, he need to connect to a website, say like Facebook or something. Facebook also will have an application, but users won't connect to the Facebook directly. In middle, there is something called as a web server. So means web server does a multiple things. If user is coming and asking repetitive things, instead of actually going to the application server, it will only serve certain things because all the static files and everything will be stored there. Just imagine you opened a Facebook login page. So every time it need not go to the application server to get the login page. So this web server itself will give the login page because it will cache and store. Or like, so such that load on the server can be reduced. Also the number of connections that can be simultaneously maintained. So all of them it will manage. What are what are the web servers means? There are many things.
সেই জন্য এরকম খুব আয়োজন করি, কখনো দোকানে গিয়ে,
Excuse
কখনো
me.
কখনো করি, অনেকদিন আগে অর্ডার দিই, কখনো বানানো থাকে। আবার যেদিন পেয়ে সেদিন সকালবেলা বা আমি আসলে একটু ইনফর্মাল ভাবেই মানে প্রবন্ধ কিভাবে
Okay. So what are the different web servers means? A typical web server can be like Nginx, Apache, ISS, IAS. So in Windows, when now you're working. So or like Gunicorn. These are all web servers. What are the things of app servers? So if it is in Windows, we have, sorry, if it is Python, we have Django, Flask, Fast API, Flask, Fast API, etc. If it is Java, we have like a Spring Boot. Like the different languages will have frameworks to help to create these things. Okay, so in production, how to work, that is different. We are not doing a production, but at this moment, so the application is fine. It is saying that the application is running in this particular server 127.0.0.1. Why that particular, I didn't give anywhere, right? So now you need to understand that by default, any local setup server will run in this particular port. So this particular server name, IP address. So what is this 127.0.0.1 means? This is called as a loopback address. Loopback address. So when the people created the IP addresses, they marked every IP for a particular purpose. So for local testings, they created this one. Anyone who executes anything locally, so it will execute in this one. It is saying that, hey, connect to this one like this. Means either you can do like this or you can say localhost. Both are a proper way. Now what they're saying, hey, go to this place, it is saying, if I can open back that particular site, you can notice that 127.0.0.1 colon 5000. Whenever you want to connect to anything, so till now we are giving like, so facebook.com, google.com like that. But why is our IP address like this? It's very simple. In the back end, the actual logic is same. Whenever you want to connect, you should give like this only. If there are three parts in this IP URL, you can say three parts. Means first one is like HTTP. So HTTP or HTTPS means a way of communicating. Way of communication means HTTP means hypertext transfer protocol. How do you transfer? But yes, HTTPS means secured way. And like where I need to connect the server IP. If you want to get, this is called a server IP. So here in this case, server IP is this one. And in this server, where we need to go? In the server also, there will be multiple processes. So port number 5000. Sir, when I do like facebook.com, what is happening in the backend? Facebook, so or whatever may be, they will have something called as a DNS, domain namespace. So that domain namespace provider will help map it. Say I have done this kind of things to mapping to some website, like so my tutorial something .com's issue. So if I do this kind of mapping, so whenever I do like this, or if I go to this site also, both will do the same thing. So this mapping we cannot do now. For that, we need to have a DNS provider outside. So at this moment, we are not doing. But temporarily for doing local testing, there is something called as ngrok, or like ordinary testing DNS mapping. DNS mapping. But for now, this is how you have it. What is the application? If you see the code, it's very simple. It has a slash. This is called as an endpoint. Means you reach to the application. Application also does multiple things. Let's say Amazon.com. Amazon sells like so products like movies also it sells. It sells like groceries, everything. So which section you want to go within the application? That you need to specify with the endpoints. And it is having some result. Now we understood. So as it is just giving hello world, in the output when you're seeing, you can see only the hello world. In the output we can see only hello world, nothing else. In the same fashion, if I go with the same URL, say localhost, we have like 5000, right? So in this case also it's the same. Means for localhost, like this also you can do, like this also you can do. There are two ways. And coming back, sir, we didn't specify the IP address. We didn't specify the port also. Then how it is happening? So that is a default thing. Whenever you give app.run, this is the most common thing. If you wanna give also, you can specify app.run of, you can specify that there are ports like port is equal to, you can specify port is equal to, say instead of 5000, I want to say like 8000. If I save again, so it will not do. We should stop because the application is already running. So we should stop it. So Control C, and I'm restarting again. If I restart again right now, did you notice that it will again open and it says that application was starting in this particular port? Did you see? It is starting in 8000 port. Now, if I navigate again, this 8000 port you can see. And similarly, if I go for the same local host, 8000, you can see the output is there. But if you go back to the previous results, which is localhost 5000, if I ask, so it will just go and say that this site cannot be reached. So hope you face this kind of error many times. So the server is open, but the port is not open. So only if other side the particular port is open, we can connect. It is simple, like, so if there are two people on two buildings top, and if someone want to throw a ball, the other side should be the person, right, to catch it. So like that, there should be one port open and which is ready to consume it. Only then you can open it. So this is how you create a small application. If I go ahead and create one more small version change to it, same like this. If I say app route, generally in a one application only you create. So here in one, the beauty of Flask is that with less amount of code you can create it. Literally see how many lines are there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In 7 lines you created a web application. That's a beauty. But you don't have like this in production. You do a lot of things there. Now here what to do. For the very first time, as I told, we create a Flask and we create a Flask application and we need to work on it. So previously also you have seen, like, so we have done like app dot route of slash define hello world of return. This is what we have seen previously. So this time I create one more application exactly same like this. So if I run it, will it execute? Be so and so? No. So you create like multiple apps. So we should have a start. Only then it will start. If you remember in the previous case also I showed this example. Once I start it, then it will start. So this is how you create the endpoints. This is how you start the application. So and one more thing I want to show here is that previously we didn't do. There is something called as debug equal to true. Debug equal to true. So when you are going to production, you should not do that. So debug equal to true will give you a lot of insights about the project, which I will show you shortly. Whenever you are reaching to something else, if it is not correct, it will help you understand. So let me give you one more API. This time say like I same like this, I want to give for one more. Instead of hello, I want to say like index. So hello index, like that I have right now too. Okay. So if I control save, it will automatically reload it. So now we need to access this endpoint. If I go and try to ask for this endpoint, hope you can see the screen. It is having the results like this. Hello world is fine. And similarly, so I have, if you observe carefully, for the same endpoint, you have one or two. You have hello world is there, you have hello index is there. So if two functions are there with the same endpoint slash, so whichever is first, it is coming. If both are there with same name, that is different story. As I told you, the latest will overwrite. Say I want now both of them. So whether user gives like this or index or both, I want to get the same thing. Then in that case, say like index error means user, if they ask directly or slash index, both should get. Now CLS and so and so. So when I do slash, they will come here. If they do like index, they will come here. Or like, if you have the same hello world assume, but for both the things. Okay. If I do right now, if I execute again, it should work. What is saying? Hey, you are trying to overwrite it. So function overwriting mapping on an existing endpoint. So you are trying to do like this. It is a problem because here you have the same logic. Either user gives directly or indirectly you want to get.
Okay, so as we have seen, so we are in the directory where we are. So we need to go to specific directory where we are working. Flask application. In that, if I say ls-la, if there are hidden files, we cannot see directly. If I am in this directory, ls-la, you can say that -a means for hidden files. I told virtual environment, it's nothing to do with your main code. It is kind of an environment which is created. So that's the reason we have stored with a dot. And if you want to activate, so every time when you were there, you can check whether it is activated or not. If I just type Python, and if I say like import sys and sys.executable, so that's where we will understand whether it is activated or not. At this moment, it is not activated. So I come out of it. And how I need to go? In the current directory, I have .env. So script and activate. If it is in the Mac or Linux, instead of script, it will be bin. That's the only difference. And once it is activated, you can see the prompt, right? Like a something. So that is how it activate happens. Similarly, if you want to deactivate also, there is a command called as deactivate. That's it. If you say deactivate, it will deactivate it. So again, if you want to activate, the same old command, we know. If I do, it will activate. This is a process. Now where we are, so in this application, how to start it? Python space, simple application. If I execute this application, it was started. And in this case, you see the point is, I have one use case. Earlier, I did like this, means by default, when user is coming, he will get like that. Now, if user comes by default or user is coming with /index, in both the cases, I want the same response. I created an application like this. Now, how to execute? It started. So why it started at 8,000? So because, okay, this is the first application which is executing every time. Now I want to execute the second application. So Control C, CLS and Python be so and so. What is saying? It is throwing an error. Hey, if one call one call with same name with different things are there. So that is not possible. So our use case is that I want either if the user comes with localhost / so and so or with some endpoint, both it should give the same thing. In that case, as it doesn't work for us, we can do in a smarter way. Hope you know how the decorators works. We can have a double decorator. Means if I do like this now, you can come in two ways. In both the ways, it will do the same thing. Say like here, index hello world. Here also index hello world. Yeah. Index hello world you wanna do. See, every time I save it, see, it is kind of restarting, right? So this is what I want to say. File reload happens. Means for the file save or file change event, it will reload. That is one thing. So this is one beauty actually. So earlier what happened? So earlier, so it used to be like there used to be like okay. Now if I execute it, you can notice that in the if I go to the browser, If I do the same thing here, what you can understand here, I didn't specify anything. I wrote debug equal to true. At the same time, I can specify the port. Instead of 5000, if say I today want to make 5001 and I did a save. Did you see every time I'm making the changes, it is showing the thing? Now in this 5001 port, I need to check. If I go back to the server and if I ask instead of 8000, if I say 5001 localhost, I should get the output. If there is any issue, it will throw an error and let me know. So I am not getting anything. Means if I go back here, you can see that as I saved, so B app routing, the exact file I'm saving, and I'm running again, but still you can see that it is not working. If I go ahead, as I placed like debug equal to true 127.0.0.1, if I execute, it will. So here it should show. It is not showing. So at least you should see the logs here. If something is not happening or happening, you should see the log here. You have an application which you started, b_app_routing. And if you don't give the port, so by default something, as I gave like 5000 or so generally we give like 8000 as or 8800. So these are like most common ports people give. If I give say this time 8000, and if I walk through it, it should come. So previously 5001 it came. It is a bit slow in terms of responding. Maybe like it's reloading for a moment and it will come back. So what it is saying? Hey, what port I activated? Oh, so though you have changed it in middle. So the port changes cannot be taken in middle. The server changes or what are the code changes, it will activate. But the port changes, if you do in middle, it cannot done because within that port it can do it. So it is saying like, hey, I am running on this port 5001. Though I changed it to 8000, that cannot be done. And all these things are like only in the dev. In production, we don't do all these things, right? You don't change within the code when something is running. So only in dev server we do. Now I did change the port. That's why when I reran, it is working, right? If I execute this one, you can notice that it is working. You see now, hello world is working. In the same fashion, if I do /index also, it will work. You see, if I say /index like index2, if I ask, what is saying? Not found, the requested URL was not found on the server. It is giving like a good message for you, right? And you are saying getting like 404 not found error. Means you didn't define something like that. So that's why I cannot give you. So hope you remember I told some kind of HTTP rules, status codes. Whenever user gives any problem, means client side issues, these are all 400 series. 404 means not found, means that particular endpoint is not there. You have an index, but you don't have an index 2, right? Say if I create one more thing like app dot, so route of say /index2, if I give, so define index2, say return. So this is index2. If I give something like this, this is index2. So it has thrown an error in due course. If I rerun it in 8000 port itself, it is running. So everything will be good. If I go back to this URL and if I reload it, as I had defined it, you are getting it. So this is how it works. And not only that, when you are giving the outputs, so instead of just giving like this is index, I can give in a much better and smarter way. So what I can say, there will be tags I can give. If you know HTML, HTML will have this kind of tags. It's some learning. You can just go. It is a markup language. That's it. If I do a head, so like this, like an XML, so closing tag, it expects 2 tags actually. If I do like this, instead of just text, you can observe how things are working. If I go here in the browser, if I reload, did you see this is index2? Means you got like a header, right? So like this, there are multiple things are there. If you want to know more, let me show you one more thing. If I go ahead and take this example, yeah. So this time I will take one HTML response purely. So C HTML response. The difference between a web app and a REST API is that web app will give the application, means in the browser you can open. REST API means it is for like backend communication, means from the server how to get the data, what the way you get to data, all of them REST API does. For REST API, people don't consume directly. In the mobile app, when you're opening, how actions are happening in the backend with APIs only. Whereas if you web app means you create everything in the browser itself. So that's why you can see till now everything in the browser. Now this time I want to create one more thing. So as you know just now, index I created with a tag. Previously I did a h2 tag. Now I want to do with a h1 tag. So if I do debug equal to true. So that's it. I didn't mention. If I don't mention, default port in so Flask is Flask 5000. If I say Python C so and so, if I created it, now you can see it is starting and running. If I go ahead, it says like hello world in this directory, and you can notice that it is working. And not only that, if you want like different kinds of things also, we can do. Maybe instead of this, I want to tell that instead of this one, I would say like, or like specifically, I want to write one more thing. Say, app dot index of say detail. Detail is a one endpoint I wrote. Define detail I wrote, and here return. I am doing a triple quotes. Triple quotes means I can go for multiple lines, right? I can show multiple things. So there was something like h1 hello world h/h1. You need to write like this. Okay, this is the syntax of a HTML. It has like h1 h2 tag. This is called as h3 tag. This is like h4 is like h4. I don't think there is h5, but you can give it a try. So h5 means the more you go down, the more it will be like this. And apart from that, there were like, P1 tags, paragraph tag, we call it as. So paragraph tag. These are like HTML tags. Now I have created two endpoints. If I rerun it, you can see that it is working. What is saying? Hey, you have index. Oh, instead of app.route, I am doing app.index. See here, this line should be every time app.route only. I did it. Now, if I say CLS and this one, you can see it is running in 5000 as I didn't mention the port. So if I go to that particular port, you can notice that it is working. And if I reload, by default, it is saying 5000 only. Sir, we gave multiple things. Yes, where we gave? For the default port, it is like default endpoint is like this. If I go for any specific endpoint, that's where things are different. So if I go here, instead of this /detail, now did you see what happened? Whatever I wrote, you can see h1 tag, h2 tag, h3 tag, h4, h5, like this. This is how HTML is created. Generally, when you're going, you may not be a full stack developer. If you are a full stack developer, you should know the front end, how to create the HTML, JavaScript, and all this, the CSS and others. If you are just working on the back end, you can just create these things. So who are the people who are responsible for the front end? They will create the front end things to help you. So it is up to you where you want to see yourself. Based upon that, you can take some option. And say, not only this, let me go for one more endpoint. This time, I want to take something. Say here, app.route of /user I'm giving. And here, the same HTML tag. So I'm taking like this specific user. So like this I'm taking. Now it is saying like /user we need to take, and it is getting a name. Now, if I go further, I have one more endpoint now. Here, instead of detail, I will say like /user. it is saying that, hey, I'm missing a positional argument called as name. So you see here, as I place a debug equal to true, I got this error. If say here, I don't place a debug equal to true. So by default, debug will be false to make it production ready. If I say debug equal to false now, and if I go back to the same thing, and if I do a re-execution, did you see you got like this? It is see here in the top 500 internal server error. I told 500 series means server side issues. 400 means client side issues, like that. So like this, we have the problems. Then how do you address this problem? So only when you place debug equal to true, you can understand the things properly. If I say debug equal to true, so what is the problem? Here you placed a name, and what are the name was passed, you are getting. But till now, are you calling these functions directly? You're not calling directly, so you're calling indirectly. Then how these things will execute? So to understand, now we did it. So as I place debug equal to true, if I execute again, it is reloading the things, and it should come to you. I think it was stopped. Yeah. So re-execute, execute it. So it's working. Yeah. Now if I go back to the server and if I reload it, it is saying that issue. So if I go all the way to the stack, it is coming from where here? It is saying that user missing one positional argument, name. So where the name was defined? So it was defined in the application. So if I go back to the application, you can see that if I just till now just ask an endpoint, it is coming. Did you see all the functions didn't take any input till now? But for the first time, you're taking an input. But for a function, if it takes an input, how do you pass it? It's not directly, right? We should pass in a particular way. So for understanding that, you need to understand that user cannot pass the things directly. Dynamically, this value should come. So to get these values dynamically, instead of this, we should go in a better way. For the same user, I would say that, hey, like this. So take the same input, and here there is one more thing like this key. I'm not saying like name, okay? If I say just a name here, observe carefully. If I say just say name, it will come something. If I execute, so instead of a user, I should go for user/name. That's it. If I go here, you see here, if I just reload, it says that I don't even have, because you define instead of user/name you define. Here also the same problem. It is saying I don't know what is name. Now the point is, instead of like this, see what I need to do. Instead of like this, I am doing in a better way. I am storing in another braces. Observe carefully. So these braces I am doing. The moment I placed it, it is becomes like a parameter. It's called as a path parameter. The moment I reload, if I say again a name, so it says, so not all arguments converted during string formatting. It is saying that, I cannot do. I got some error again. So it is somewhere here the problem is, and it is having an issue. You see now, you will understand. You are taking the name and you are doing a string formatting. Where you are placing this name? So there is nothing like, so we can write in a better way. So if it is clearly here, it is a format issue. So name is whatever the name user has given. I can give like this. Whatever the user has given, the same name I'm doing now. It is clear. Now, if I reload again and execute it, now it is working and doing it. If I go further to this thing, and if I reload this page, it is saying name is name. If I say name is equal to Uday, name is equal to the. If I say like name is equal to Python, so it's coming, right? Whatever you do, it is coming like that. Because that's how I formatted and gave the inputs. So it is interesting. So similarly, so now if I want to create, so this one, it was done in the same fashion. Yeah. Let me create one final solution, which is kind of like a calculator application. I think with that you will understand. Any doubt till now? So you don't have any doubt, right? Fine. So not only that, before even going, if you want to have some application with some kind of login and others, you can do that also. Say like, let me create. So till now I created 3 applications with more ordinary things. So till now I don't have any login concept, nothing. Let me create like, so login app or app with login. Login. I created one more app right now. I just want to reuse the same virtual environment. So instead of again creating and wasting our time. So, but generally for every application, we write a separate thing. But fine. Here I am creating. Whenever you are creating any application, the default convention is to write app.py. So I can write any name. It is not mandatory that we should write in a particular way. But so the general convention is to write like a app.py. App.py is like the main place where the application is residing. That's what they say. So the basic syntax, what I told, we need to first do flask import Flask, and app is equal to Flask of. So what are the name maybe? Say like instead of underscore name, because that's how everyone does, underscore name underscore. So rather I want to say like, instead of that, I want to say that, hey, my app, something I wrote. Okay, it will work. Now, what is the next point you need to have? So we need to start the application. So these are 3 things, import. So start this app and run it. So by default, if you start, it will work. But if there is no endpoint, what to show? There is nothing, is there, right? So now we need to write the endpoints. Within this, if I start writing the endpoints, you can see that till now we have something we created that like, hey, app dot route of, say, the endpoint you give. So within that endpoint, we have some things. Define index. I am doing return hello world. Till now we have this one, right? Or if not, in a better way, what I did. So instead of this one, I told like, so hey, we can do something better, and we can store this content in a HTML tag, right? Say h1. So and /h1. If I execute it, that is coming. Now, for the first time, instead of getting this content directly, I want to get this content stored in some other place and get the information, get it as it is. So I can say that there is, in this directory, we can create a folder called as templates. So within the templates, I can write that index.html. So instead of this one here, I can store it there. So I can store this content there in the index.html and I render from it. So instead of these returns, the best way I can do is that we have a template somewhere. From that template, I want to render. So in the Flask application, we need to import that render template and we can render from it. So return render of, you specify the template. So index.html. It will go in the current directory and check for the folder called as templates and check for the index.html. Now, if I execute this one, you'll understand that. So CLS and Python app.py. So this is how you write program. If I execute it, it is starting in this particular 5001 server. And did you see when I executed, it got like hello world? How it got hello world? Because whatever I have written. So now you understood there are 3 ways. Directly give that content or the HTML, or you pass to the HTML file itself and it can get from it. So now as this is possible, I will do like one more smart thing. By default, index file is there. So the index file means instead of showing everything on top, why can't I say that a login page? So a login page I can give and I can do, right? So, okay, this one I would say like a_app. You understood a very simple thing. Now for you to understand, I create like say b_app.py. So the same content I will take this time such that, tomorrow when you're working also, it would be easy. So I will stop the server. Now I want to run the second server. So Python b_app.py. This is how you ran it. Now application is started. So you have this content. So instead of getting this one, I want to right now a load from some login page I want to take. For this also I'm taking the same thing. And instead of this, I am saying a login.html and I want to load the HTML file. So instead of this one. So for that, what I can do like this app.route, I am rendering from this login.html. So in the template folder, it will check for this login.html and try to help us. So in the login.html, if you need to have some code, so I'm not here to explain these things, but so in a typical, if you just Google also, you'll get. So login form means, so HTML every time will have this kind of doc HTML. This is the standard line. And from then everything will have a tags. Open tag, close tag, open tag, closing tag. In the HTML, there will be a header and a body. Header I didn't mention, so only body I'm mentioning. Within the body, I gave a form. Form means like in the UI, you will see the username, password, right? That same thing. So post method equal to post, because so the moment it loads, you add some details and you just print a button, right? To go the data. So this is how we need to do in the front end. So if I do like this, then it will work. So I created this server, and if I go ahead and ask, you can notice that the moment I have gone, it showed a username. I can enter anything, and if I give an enter, it is saying that not found the request to your so and so. Means it is redirecting to login page. So this is another interesting thing. So login, whenever it happens, whenever for any path, if you see the render of this one, I am redirecting to the login page, it is saying. So whatever you give, it will go to the login page. But here you didn't define the login page. So /login you didn't give. So why it is going to the /login? I will tell you. In the login.html, did you see we have given like /login? Means username, only one field is there. You pass the username. The moment you submit the button, click on the button, it will go to the /login. But /login, you didn't define it. If you define it, then it will work. Similarly, like what we have till now, I will define the login. The login page people will come in two ways. Whenever they have a request or response. Means now here I will tell you there are two types of actions. By default, a page will be displayed, facebook.com. After you entering username, password, that data should go to the server, right? So that is a post, and whatever you give, it will just going and validating like thing. So for a login page, user can come in two ways. So app.route of, say, if I do like /login method. So I write some kind of login. So login by default will happen in two ways. The users can come with a GET request or a POST request. So there is one more thing called as a request to understand how the user came. So till now you don't have anything else. So for the first time, I will show you something interesting. So user, there are two things you will be there, request and URL. Slowly you will get understood to these things, form and redirect. Okay. URL for, okay. You see here now, user is coming with /login. The user can come with two actions. To understand which action user is coming with, so request.methods are there. So request.method is either post or a put or something. At this moment, we know only these two. So then like the user form, in the user, whatever you are entering, so can be one value, right? That value, if you want to take, user request.form, if I do, I can get all the values. And if the value is equal to admin, so then like you do a success. That's what I'm trying to say here. If anything else, just don't do anything. That's what I'm saying. So if everything is good, say success. If not, redirect. So means like instead of just saying a success, so we are saying like say here, that is like success. If I say, what is this URL for means redirecting to another URL. So till now we are doing what? Rendering this content, right? So whenever this is happening, the login page is happening, the user requests and it will go here. So whenever user is coming, instead of just returning a success, I am redirecting to another endpoint called as success. So for that, I need to define another endpoint called as success. And say if the user is coming and saying with some other thing, like, he is giving something incorrectly or not properly, then we need to redirect to index. But we didn't define index. I told you, if you want by default or like this, you define like this. Now you have two endpoints here. This is one endpoint. This is one endpoint. The user comes login. By default, it is a post only. When submit and the user is admin, then it is going to the success, logged in successfully. If not, it will go to the index again. Again, reload the page. Now, this is what you created, a small application. If I execute it, it will work. And if I go back to this server, you see now it is there. If I use some other name, it is just going and see again redirecting the same page, right? So if I give anything else, it is again redirecting to the same page. Maybe we can write some messages also. But if I do like admin, you see you got /success. So it is redirecting to success, right? So that is what I am trying to say. So it is going to the other page. So in this way, things will work. Yeah. So like this, we created one small app. Hope it's clear. Any doubts till now in terms of a small Flask app? And one more thing, and one more kind of redirect I want to say is like this. So this is how redirects will happen. URL for and redirect are two things. And similarly, there is one more thing called as the abort. Abort is another thing to understand. If I'm saying like, /uname means whatever you passed, I'm storing in a, path parameter I told, right? User will path like this and do it. So by default, if you pass anything else, it can take, what is saying? B app so and so. What is saying? Path is overwriting something. Oh, you wrote something like index already, and you are coming like this. It is not recommended because both are like index, right? Say like something I'm doing. Okay, I'm changing the function names because I'm trying to use the same function. It will get it out. So now, apart from this, if you do anything else also, if you give a ordinary values, it will be good. If it is a desert, it will be abort. So good username, something I will do. UNAME. Something. Yeah, string I wrote. Now, if you see here, if I go back here and if I do something else, so good username. If I do something else, good username. If I say like alpha and numeric, good username. If I just do a number, then it is forbidden. Forbidden, first time you are seeing, right? Forbidden means what? You are not allowed. So abort. Abort, if you write, it will give you that output. Means every time you are not defining all these things. Every time make a note of these HTTP responses. Whatever is there, you can do all the kinds of things. Timeout you can do, or like if the user is not having the enough money, they didn't make the payment. So all of them we can do. So what else we can do after this is like this. Next, Going further, we can focus on the next big thing. Like this, we can see, yeah, like this. If you see, yeah. Let's create one small HTML application which can do a calculator. So that is what we can do. Yeah. Like this application, the third application we do is on the calculator. C_calculator. So less than everything, we will have an app.py. That's what we know till now. And similarly, we need to have a templates folder. Within that, we can have any thing with that we have. Say I don't want a login, so I will write like some index.html. You see here. So this time I want to create a small application for the calculator. How do we have a calculator? If you want to create a calculator, so we need to have the default landing page. And after that, we need to have an application to do the things. So first I create a small default landing page. The default landing page means first I need to create an app which will have a index, which will run on this index.html. In the index.html, I need to create a form which can take these inputs and do it. So for that, if I can take a HTML, which is having like a head of calculator and the body is like this. Within that, there is some form like HTML form, which is taking like method is post as form. So where it should go. So instead of writing there, I'm writing something here. For the first time, instead of like URL for there, URL for in the previous application also used the URL for. URL for means redirecting to that particular thing. So instead of directly doing, so there I wrote like /action or something, right? /login. Instead of doing like this, I am making this called as the Jinja syntax. Means this is kind of like Python code within HTML like that. So wherever the two braces are there, whatever the content within it is there, that action will happen. And here I have like operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. 4 options will be there and user selects and give the input. Now I have an app and to do the things. I have a default landing page. Similarly, I need to have some kind of logic also, right? So for kind of having the logic, so how it works. And before even showing, yes, yeah. So before even showing, let me go with the other things also. If I need to have 2 things, as I told, in the post, we will pass 2 inputs. So the user values, right? So input 1 and input 2. Number 1 is there, number 2 is there. So these 2 numbers I'm taking. So I need to do some operation. So how I will do? Let's see. For that, first I need to create an action, route/calculate. So users will give input and do post. For that, number 1 is equal to from the form how to get it, and the operation also. These 3 are the operations. And based upon the operation, I should tell what action to be done. So typically I do like a addition, subtraction, so and so, and give the end result. So to understand it, so what I will do, I will do something like this. The logic is that, say, if the user is giving the number 1 and number 2 are correctly, then please say, if they are not numbers, please enter 2 numbers. If they are numbers and digits, validations, all kinds of validations. If everything is due, I'm doing the operations. So finally, the result, whatever I'm getting, that I need to render. So for rendering, till now, I do rendering, right? So like that I do. So render the template, I did. And what are the result.html and result equal to result. Means I need to have one more HTML where it will render the result. So for that, I need to take one more template and do it. Means within this templates dot so and so, I need to say that result.html. Result.html. And here you dump that. I wrote it. What it is saying, I am doing a win braces result. Means what are the variable I pass, here it will come. And the h tags. Means everything is like it's standard, only this is changing. Now, if I execute it, you will understand that. If I go directly, calculator, if I say like CLS and Python app.py, if you execute, you will understand that it is executing. If I go to the landing page, hope I am in the current directory. Yeah, calculator. So Python, so app.py. It is executing, but nothing is happening. This kind of error came multiple times for me. The reason being you created everything, but did you start the application? So we didn't start, right? App dot run I'm doing. If I do right now, it will execute. It is saying that I am executing in 5000 server. It will be like this. So if I navigate to this directory, then you can see it. If I give like a 2, so plus 3, if I give, I'll get the result. Did you see? So now 2 pages are coming. How it is coming back? If I go back and if I say like 4, so instead of into minus 4 minus 5 I do. I'll get 4 minus 5 means minus 1. I got minus 1. I created a small application like this. I give some numbers. So if I give something incorrect, like invalid I give, then what is saying? Hey, please enter valid numbers. So don't you think like I created a small application? So based upon these things, so you practice and